Are You Afraid of the Dark? By Reddit user, My Morning Mojito. Are you afraid of the dark? This question always warrants a knee-jerk reaction from me. The answer is yes. I am petrified, horrified of the dark, despite being a 20-something male with a steady life and aversion to most fears. In the dark, I encounter the single most malevolent creature, something so inhuman. Just uttering the name I have given it sends shivers down my spine. When I was 8 years old, my family owned a cabin in Wyoming. This cabin was near Jackson Hole, a mountainous alpine area of the state. With a population density of about 0, it was isolated at its finest. Aspen forests dotted the landscapes and snow blanketed the hillsides. Of course, there is a catch to everything. Here is my story. Are we there yet? No, Craig, we still got about 5 minutes, sweetie. My mother said as we took the family station wagon up the windy road to the cabin. It was October and we were spending a lot of weekends granted by the elementary school up at the cabin. A light snow fell from the sky, dotting the fallen autumn leaves. We're here! The cabin itself was relatively modest, but picturesque regardless. Hardly 2,000 square feet, the cabin was petite, but blended into the mountainside like fresh paint on a canvas. It was chilly with blustering winds, and we all unpacked once we entered the cabin. With us was my mother, my father, my older sister Sarah, and myself, an 8-year-old stricken with naivety and aloofness. Craig, would you help Sarah unpack the food? We're going to make s'mores over the fire tonight. And that night, as the stars illuminated the ominous landscape, we did make s'mores. And as an 8-year-old with the desire for adventure, I didn't give a rat's ass about eating s'mores for my family. I should have, but I really didn't. So that night, as the wind blew the snow across my feet, I snuck away from my family and went to explore the forest. I must have walked miles, but I had no calls from my parents. I figured I was too far away for me to hear them. Despite being miles away from civilization, I didn't feel alone. I didn't feel that peace that should have been associated with a solitary night hike. I couldn't wrap my 8-year-old mind around it at the time, but I knew what I was thinking, and I knew I wasn't alone. Someone or something else was there. I sighed and brushed the snow off my mittens, and I glanced to my left. There, I stood paralyzed, stricken by fear. In front of me I saw 2 beady, piercing yellow eyes. They pierced through the darkness like 2 narrow flashlights, or 2 bright fireflies, but make no mistake, these were eyes. I almost made out the horrifying green pupils. Before I could bolt, the eyes vanished. They didn't fade beyond the tree line, they vanished suddenly. Right before I freaked out, I heard the faint and almost relaxing voice. Do you know what I am? I stood perfectly still, panting and shaking. It repeated itself. Do you know what I am? I closed my eyes and held my breath. No, I said, trembling. Craig, what if I said I know who you are? What if I said I wanted to be your friend? It said in a similarly calming voice. I saw the yellow eyes the minute I opened my eyes again. I couldn't move. I physically felt unable to take a single step. To move one finger, I felt trapped. I felt horrified. I began to cry.
Craig, I want to be your friend.
Friend.
Craig.
Do you want to be my friend? Craig.
I didn't respond. I may have been naive, but I wasn't brainless. As I again opened my eyes, I saw a flicker of light and what appeared to be a tail.
Craig,
Craig.
these are my words. If you wish to stay, you must be my friend.
Friend.
Craig.
I have no patience for those who don't want to be my friend. Craig, no patience.
It said. The calming, almost soothing tone had vanished entirely. The tones were ominous, borderline homicidal. I was quivering, shaking, trembling. I bolted, I ran, I fled. I don't think any 8-year-old had ever run as fast as I. I could hear its maniacal voice in the background, a voice that descended into a fierce laugh, which grew softer and softer. By the time I'd made it back to the fire, neither my parents nor sister were there. As I tried to comprehend what had transpired, I heard my parents screaming and sobbing hysterically. I began to chase after the sound, the cries growing ever louder. As I passed by a certain aspen pine, I saw my parents huddled around a lifeless body. The lifeless body of Sarah. Sarah had died in the woods, all alone. Craig, go back to the damn house, Craig. Go, go, go. Run and get help. Go. Go to the phone and call 911 now. My mum yelled through the tears. My dad couldn't even speak. Any words came out only as a whimper. My sister didn't make it. We drove back to Denver for the funeral. I must have not spoken for weeks. I was shocked by the grief. Psychiatrists and therapists, nobody could help me. Months later, when I was getting better, I was turning off the light before bed. My parents no longer tucked me into bed. They were just too grief-stricken. As I reached for the light switch, a note card caught my glance. The note card read,
Why didn't you want to be my friend?
I flipped it over and through the tears read, Are you afraid of the
God.
Doppelganger in my living room by Reddit user Fire. Okay, so I only heard about doppelgangers recently. I believe in supernatural and am interested in most paranormal phenomena, be it ghosts, skinwalkers, UFOs, you name it. That shit is both terrifying and captivating. Especially when you're on Reddit at 3 AM, reading all about all sorts of obscure experiences and being paralysed by dread so much so you can't even make yourself crawl 10 feet to your bed. So you sleep on the couch, me last night. I've had all sorts of experiences myself, just haven't been able to label many of them in any way until now. Having discovered a certain subreddit, as a result I've learned I've apparently encountered a doppelganger of some sort. Do you be the judge? This isn't an especially creepy story, nor is it long, but someone will want to hear it anyways, and I've already started, so here it comes. Sorry about the mistakes I'm about to make. English isn't my first language. I think this happened in spring 2011 in North Europe. If somebody cares, I was 16 and I came home from school. My mother worked from home and my father studied, so I always expected to see both of them when I came home around 5 in the afternoon. I rang the doorbell. I was given a key when I moved in, but I managed to lose it and I accidentally left one in the washing machine. So at this point I just had to depend on whoever was in the house to open it for me. Someone opened the door. When I stepped in though, nobody was behind the door. Alright, I thought. It was my sister who was told to open the door and wanting to get back to whatever she was doing before I rang the bell and just ran away. I took off my outerwear, took off my bag and went to look for my family. I walked across the hall and put my head around the living room door. My father was there, sitting on the couch. I said hi, and something to the effect of I'd had a good day. He always used to ask me about it, so I developed a sort of habit of telling him out of my own initiative. Now, my father was extremely absent-minded. You can stand and talk to him for like 10 minutes, and afterwards, he doesn't remember a word, or that you were even talking to him. He lives in his own world half the time. Maybe sounds a little strange, but he's alright. It's just the way he is. And he's not very talkative. Bearing this in mind, I wasn't really surprised when he didn't answer me. He just stood up, walked slowly over to the window wall, leaned against it, and removed his glasses and rubbed his eyes. I was like, oh, he's had a rough day. He must be exhausted. I repeated, had a good day. He just nodded without turning his head, smiled slightly, and raised his hand in greeting. I went searching for my mum. I found my mum like 10 seconds later in my parents' room, laying on the bed, watching YouTube videos with my father. They said something like,
Hi, how did you get in? We didn't hear the doorbell. Did you have a key?
I was like, holy shit, wait a second. Dad? What are you doing in here? And darted back into the living room. And it was totally empty. Then I checked all the rooms. Nothing. I don't exactly know what I was looking for, but whatever it was no longer there. Nothing, nobody. Not even my sister and brother. And I checked everywhere, in the closets, under the bed, in the freaking washing machine. I went back to my parents' room and told them I saw what I thought was my dad less than a minute before I entered the bedroom. They believed me. They said they didn't hear me ring the bell. They didn't open the door for me. or know who did, because my brother had taken my sister to the park before I came home. If this happened now, I'd be scared, but back then I just felt extremely weird and surreal. I hadn't been more than 10 feet from him. I have extremely sharp eyesight. I could guarantee it was my father. It looked exactly like him, acted like him, sounded like him. It walked like my father. It had his clothes. It smelled just the same. I absolutely didn't doubt it was my father, not for a second. What the fuck? I didn't really know what to make of it afterwards, so I just forgot about everything in a short time. Not the weirdest thing to happen to me, not even nearly actually, but weird enough that it comes back to me every now and then. I just want to say thank you to Redditors for letting me use their awesome stories. Thank you to you lot for listening and subscribing. I appreciate it. And I hope you enjoy the stories. Took me a little bit longer to get out. My bad. And always remember, trouble comes your way, just try to make yourself look big. Hee hee.